15 to 20 pounds worth of apps for $5.99. So in my opinion, Pro Camera by Moment is the app of the moment. It's the top app in the App Store, and it's well worth a look. Fast forward to today, and a lot has changed, not least my hairstyle, thankfully. Since then, we now have ProRAW, new iPhones, and other camera apps have been updated, some quite substantially. So Moment, as a feature-packed, multifunctional camera app with a phenomenal reputation, finds itself under ever-increasing pressure from a variety of fronts. The questions I get asked all the time are, which is better, Moment or Halide? Moment or ProCam 8? Moment or Filmic Pro? The point is, no other app finds itself in more categories competing for your attention more than Moment, which begs the question, should you invest in different apps for different things, or is Moment the only solution you need? Let's find out. Let's start with photo mode. Photo mode is full of features for all kinds and all levels of photographer to enjoy, such as the ever useful focus and exposure reticles, a live histogram, manual controls, exposure guides, bracketing, and focus peaking, which is a good selection of features, but nothing special. Unlike the other modes, there's no killer feature or interface element that sets it apart and makes me think, wow, I have to use Moment for my still photography. In fact, the user interface that I praised so much last year now feels a bit dated and uninspired, although it has received an update since I last reviewed it. Before, you had to constantly tap to cycle through options, but now everything gets its own little drop down, which is far more efficient. And I do like the layout. I like how once you're set up, all of the essentials are right there on screen for you. And I appreciate they've had to design the interface to work across 4 different modes, but on full screen iPhones, it just doesn't take advantage of the screen real estate in the way that others do. And having to scroll across to access all of the manual settings just feels a bit unnecessary now, especially as ProCam has shown that you can fit all of the settings on screen at once without it looking cluttered. But the interface being stale and unoptimized is a minor gripe. However you like to shoot, it shouldn't hinder your process or negatively impact your photos. Something that does though, something that will, is Moment's image quality. Now, the question I get asked all the time is which app has the best image quality, and the truth is all of these developers have access to the same hardware and the same APIs from Apple. So all of the image quality across all the apps, So the image quality across all of the apps should be the same, but Moment has a problem. Its raw files, they're okay, they're fine. But when it comes to processed images, Moments just look objectively worse. And this includes ProRAW, as they are processed files too. Even when I choose to capture full quality, it's like all of the Apple computational magic stuff is turned off. And I first noticed this back in December 2020 when I made my Apple ProRAW video just after ProRAW came out. At the time, all third-party camera apps like Halide, ProCamera and Camera M all took around 3 seconds to capture a ProRAW file, but Moment was noticeably faster, and it's easy to see why. But instead of bravely calling them out about it online, which seems to be the thing to do now, I just politely sent them an email letting them know what I'd found and sent them some examples, hoping that the issue would be resolved in time for this review. So I first noticed this back in late December 2020. I sent the email on the 5th of February 2021, and I'm recording this on the 3rd of March, and it's still the same. The issue is still there, so I have to mention it. But what's funny is that apparently the developers hadn't even noticed, and I haven't heard or seen anyone else mentioning this, so apparently no one else has noticed either. Or maybe they just don't care. Maybe it's just me being me, trying to upset one camera app developer after the other. I'm not sure. Either way, it needs to be fixed before I can continue recommending Moment to hype JPEG or Pro RAW shooters. And yes, Moment won my 2020 App of the Year award when I was well aware of this issue, but I thought with the speed that camera apps change and get updated, this won't be much of an issue at all. So there's no point in mentioning it because it will be fixed extremely quickly. But alas, I was wrong. So here we are. Which brings me to my next point. By the time you're watching this, then this issue may very well have been fixed. And if it has, then I will leave an update in the good old description. And if it is fixed, then Moment has a really good photo mode with a really useful feature set that's well laid out, albeit with a bit of a stale design that all kinds and all levels of photographer should enjoy. In terms of where Moment's photo mode ranks in the scheme of things, Halide is still my favorite. It's still my go-to camera app for stills. Since Mark II was released back in October 2020, most other camera apps have felt a bit antiquated, Moment included. But Halide is expensive, and of course there is more to Moment than just the photo mode. But more on that in my conclusion. Let's move on to video mode. I said before that Moment's other modes all have that one killer feature that sets them apart from the rest, and it's these that have kept the app at the top of the pile. In video mode, there's actually a few, including a waveform, RGB histogram, picture profiles, 1.33 times anamorphic lens support, and comprehensive audio options. These things are a big deal for serious video shooters and iPhone filmmakers. These sorts of features put Moment in the same conversation as Filmic Pro, ProTake, and Beastcam. But I highly doubt that there is another app out there that offers all of this, plus raw photos, plus time lapses, and a slow shutter. But does it all work? Well, yes, except for when it doesn't, which I will get to. So this B-roll sequence was shot entirely on my iPhone XR in the Moment app in 4K in the log profile. Whether or not it's a real log profile, I'm not qualified to say, but according to the Luma waveform, you do get more dynamic range and it does grade exceptionally well. Speaking of the waveform, its usefulness shouldn't be understated as it allows you to accurately monitor your exposure so you can shoot with your screen brightness turned down to save battery. The RGB histogram also works really well for accurate colours and white balance, and the manual focus peaking is really comprehensive, as are the clipping warnings, but I wish there was an option to have them only appear temporarily, as they can make monitoring what's happening in your scene quite difficult. But apart from that, there's nothing distracting you from your composition. Once you hit record, a lot of the interface just jumps out of the way, leaving only the necessary stuff. The manual controls can be accessed over here, and on the other side you have the audio levels, which are now even more useful than they were before because you can now see which microphone you're recording from. You can also adjust the gain of external microphones and adjust the volume when you're monitoring your audio. Your audio shouldn't be an afterthought, and Moment clearly think the same way because they've got a whole list of comprehensive audio options, and they've added support for Bluetooth microphones, which works extremely well. And if you'd like a full list of Moment's features, or you're looking at any of this stuff like, huh? Then I have a full 55-minute long Moment app tutorial, which covers everything from where the flash is to which audio bitrate you should choose and why. But even with my tutorial, something iPhone 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max users won't find is 10-bit HDR video. Yeah, you've probably dropped around $1,000 on your fancy new iPhone and you want to shoot 10-bit HDR in the Moment app, but you can't. It's not here, and there's no mention of it in the update history. Like the image quality issue, this could have changed by the time you're watching this, but even without 10-bit HDR, you're still getting a fantastic video mode. Just keep in mind that this warning is true. You can drop frames in the flat and log profiles at or above certain frame rates. But I've been using the Moment app since May 2020 on a variety of different iPhones, and it's only ever happened about 3 times. So it does happen, but it's very, very rare. Something else I used to record this B-roll footage was the DJI Osmo Mobile 3 gimbal, and I'm mentioning this because Moment supports it rather brilliantly. Once you connect it via Bluetooth, the two will pair automatically and you can record, change lenses and adjust some settings directly from the gimbal. Something else you can do with it is set a path in time-lapse mode, which is really cool because it adds that extra wow factor to your time lapses. But even without the Osmo Mobile 3, Moment's time-lapse mode is still a killer feature all unto itself, thanks to its cool effects, the motion blur and light trails, its comprehensive export options, and its really simple, really easy setup. And apart from a small design tweak to the main time-lapse interface element, it doesn't appear to have changed much at all since my 2020 video, but then again, it didn't need to, except for the fact it is now an optional in-app purchase costing $3.99, but you can get it together with the slow shutter mode for $4.99 in their Pro bundle, and it's well worth doing because slow shutter mode is also one of the best around. This is the mode that relies 100% on the motion blur and light trail effects, and it hasn't changed at all since I last reviewed it, but didn't need to. You get loads of durations to choose from, including bulb, which makes it really versatile. You can take long exposures of things such as slow moving clouds or fast moving vehicles and just look at the quality of the results. Its motion blur effect is on par with the great slow shutter cam, and if you set it up properly, its light trails are smooth, whereas other apps like ProCam, Spectre Camera and Camera Plus 2 lag behind in one area or another. ProCam's results are, well, yeah. And Camera Plus 2 can perform quite well, kind of, except for when the screen goes completely white as if it's taking a real long exposure. Either I'm doing something wrong or someone should tell Camera Plus 2 that it's not doing a real long exposure. Now before I mentioned how everything works really well, except for when it doesn't, which has always been Moment's Achilles heel, but I'm actually in a really great position to report on Moment's stability and its reliability because I've just finished filming my full Moment app tutorial, which means I've been thoroughly exploring every feature, every corner, every mode, every nook, every cranny of the app multiple times, and I'm very pleased to report that Moment is far and away more stable than it was, more stable and more reliable than it was last year, although it still does suffer the occasional hiccup. I wouldn't say that crashes are uncommon, but they don't feel like they're happening constantly. They don't feel like a woodpecker constantly pecking at you like before. Instead, they're more like a mild hindrance that makes you just tut and roll your eyes slightly instead of cursing the heavens. Other interesting quirks, apart from the image quality thing I mentioned before, include how image formats just tend to appear and disappear randomly. On the iPhone 12 Pro, you get RAW, ProRAW, but RAW plus JPEG has just been completely ditched. And as I said before, the flat and log profiles do drop frames, although this is very rare. So overall, I would say that the Moment app now doesn't crash or glitch any more than other camera apps. Good show. So let's wrap this thing up. There are other apps, other single apps that do one thing and do that thing exceptionally well. Better than Moment, but no other app offers the consistently comprehensive all-in-one experience that Moment does. Yes, if you want an app that's purely for RAW or JPEG photos, then Halide is a better option. If you want to make a short film with your iPhone, then there are better, more reliable options like Filmic Pro and Beastcam. But this isn't the point of the Moment app. The point is that if you took all of my camera apps off me, apart from one, if I could only use one single app from now until the rest of time, it would have to be the Moment app. And I think that sums it up perfectly. But is it better than ProCam? But instead of bravely calling them out about it online, which seems to be the thing to do now, oh my days, how I've atted you, how you cannot ignore my hashtags. Look at my hashtags. It's all I have in life is my hashtags. Okay. But instead of bravely calling them out about instead of atting and hashing and whatever people do, I've atted you. Therefore, I'm brave because I've atted you. I'm calling you out with my hashtags. Yeah. Get a f***ing life, man. Get a life. Am I in focus? I appear to be in focus. Oh, do you like this new case, by the way? This is from a company called US Key Vision. Us Key Vision. I don't know. But anyway, they were kind enough to send me this case and a 1.55 anamorphic lens. So I'm keen to make a video on that because I like anamorphic lenses and I like these cases as well. They're really cool. And because you've watched the bloopers, you know about it. The bloopers know. Always watch the bloopers, you learn something extra when watching the bloopers. You either learn how much of an idiot I am, you learn how many mistakes I make, and you learn about upcoming stuff, so there you go. Right, I'm going to get on with it, and I'm going to cut, and you will be none the wiser. But the clapping clown outside, the clapping clown.